Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hack, and in this video you're checking out an updated build for the Stamina Necromancer for the Elder Scrolls Online Stonethorn DLC. And this is a good one. This is my update to the Death Knight solo build for the Stam Necro. Tons of self-healing, damage over time, damage mitigation. This build is basically unkillable, immortal. It can just do a lot, whether you want to solo in dungeons, you want to solo world bosses. This build is extremely strong and a lot of fun to play. So as usual, we'll be going over the gear set options. We'll talk about skills, champion points. We'll go over a basic rotation and even talk about the outfit style. And all that is coming up right now. Alright everybody, here we are back on the Stamina Necromancer for ESO, this time with a solo Stam Necro build update for the Stonethorn DLC. Stonethorn has not dropped yet, but I'm here on the PTS checking out some of the updated sets, and I think we got a good build here. Extremely solid, tanky build, almost unkillable as far as self-healing, damage mitigation, and pretty good damage as well. So really fun build to play. This is my take on the Death Knight style build. So let's go ahead and jump into the buffed stats. We'll use a potion here, and then in terms of buffs, we have armor, Spirit Guardian, and let's see what we got. So sitting at about 10,000 max magicka, almost 20,000 max health, almost 35,000 max stamina. Those stats are a little bit flexible depending on your glyphs. 1,700 stamina recovery is very good, considering this is actually a heavy armor build on an orc. That stamina recovery is very strong. We get even more based on some of our Stam Necro abilities. About 3k weapon damage right now, though that does go over 4,000 with our sets and glyphs fully procced. 51% weapon critical on a heavy armor build is not bad. Also consider that we get almost 40% bonus critical when in execute range. That does come from our Necromancer class passives. And then 24,000 spell and physical resist is very good. We have even more damage mitigation, minor protection, minor maim. We'll talk about all that in a minute. All our points into max stamina, since this is a stamina-focused Necro build. Using the blue stamina and stam recovery food. It's going to be really nice since we are running heavy armor. We have plenty of health already, even from Necromancer passives. So the extra max stam and stamina recovery is very nice. Have the Thief Mundus right now, though you could slot in the Shadow for a little bit more damage and execute. That's another very nice option as well. Now in terms of the potion, you do need weapon power potions on this setup since I'm running sword and shield and not 2H. I don't have the rally buff, so I do need weapon power potions. If you don't want to use those, then you can probably run front bar 2H to make that work. Now, in terms of the race, I like Orc on Stam Necro. Like I said, we have plenty of sustain. We're going to get some nice benefits from the extra max stamina, the extra max health, and of course the weapon damage and movement speed, sprint speed. It's all good. Though you can do, if you don't have as much champion points as I do, if you're a little bit lower level, Red Guard is nice for the extra sustain. And then you have races like Nord, which is going to be great for utility. In terms of even more damage mitigation, you'll be close to 30k spell and physical resist on the Nord, plus you get the extra ult gen. So those are some of my top picks, but I think that covers all the basics. So let's talk about the gear sets. Starting off with the main 5-piece set that makes this build basically a Death Knight, in my opinion. That's going to be the Leeching Plate set from Imperial City. This is a heavy armor set, but it's very nice. It's actually getting a little bit buffed in the Stonethorn DLC. So you got the max health, got healing taken, max health again, and then when you take damage, you summon a cloud of leeching poison, almost 1,800 poison damage every 1 second for 5 seconds, and it heals you for 100% of the damage caused, and you can create a cloud once every 5 seconds. Now, this is not a single target damage and heal effect. This is actually affects multiple targets. So this build gets even stronger in trash pulls and AoE situations. You get a lot of damage and a lot of healing from this set in terms of a heavy armor setup. So I think the buff is it's now doing a little bit more damage. I think they might have removed the proc from this as well. So it's going to be very nice for a solo build, you guys. Now, it does require a bit of dungeon running, so I would recommend just doing maybe the daily pledge when it's time for Imperial City and pick this up. It's a very nice 5-piece set, either for tanking or for soloing. So I am running 5 pieces of this on the body. So that's going to be the heavy chest, heavy waist, hands, legs, and feet. All divines if you can. And I've actually changed the max health over to max stamina because I thought I had enough health for just soloing. But if you want to be a tank, then you could probably keep the max health enchants on this set. So that's going to be the main defensive 5-piece. Like I said, it is a heavy armor build, which is a little bit different than my solo builds. Usually I'm either running medium armor or light armor for the extra damage. But the passives that Stam Necro gets, you actually do quite a lot of damage, even in heavy armor, while basically being invincible from this set proc. You know, the extra healing plus all the extra nice defensive passives that you get from heavy armor, which we'll go over in a minute. So really nice setup for this build. For our other 5-piece set, since we are very defensive already, I just wanted something a little bit more offensive. So my favorite option for that right now is going to be Briarheart. Briarheart gives you lots of nice weapon critical, max stamina, and then when you deal critical damage, you increase your weapon damage by 450 for 10 seconds, and then your critical strikes heal you for about 350 health. Now there is a little bit of a cooldown, basically a 5-second cooldown on this, so you won't have it up all the time, but the healing on this is honestly just extra. We don't even need that healing to stay alive, but it's a nice bit of weapon damage, and it's an easy proc set to get. You can buy this either on Guild Traders, or you can farm it yourself from the Hrothgar zone from the Arsenium DLC. Now, in terms of the front bar weapon, this is a sword and shield build, the way I've set it up. So we've got the Briarheart dagger. Now, any one-handed Briarheart piece is fine. Could be a sword, could be a mace, really doesn't matter. And then you just have the Briarheart shield with max stamina, and then divines for that weapon. I would recommend sharpened, just for a little bit of extra penetration with an absorb stamina enchant. You can also use damage poisons if you want on this build. That will be very nice as well. So 2 pieces of Briarheart on the weapons, and then our other 3 pieces are just going to be Briarheart jewelry. So this comes in robust, I believe. You used to be able to get this in other traits, I think. I'm not sure if it's still that way. But I would recommend trait changing these eventually if you want this to be your main build. So 2 infused and 1 bloodthirsty is what I have currently. Weapon damage on everything because sustain is a breeze on this build. So Briarheart, leeching. Then for the monster set, remember we're going with the Death Knight theme, and I'll show you what this proc looks like in a minute. But this really matches up. It's the Thorvakin set, gives you max health, which is nice. Then when you take damage, you summon a glowing pool on the ground, very similar to Leeching Plate, by the way. It doesn't do very much damage, but it does do AoE minor maim, so that reduces all of your enemies' damage to you by 15%. Now, this has gone down a little bit recently, so you're not going to be able to have it up 100% of the time. I believe you'll have left over like maybe a 4 or 5 second cooldown, but again, it's fine. This build is heavy armor. You can take the hits regardless. I just feel like it's a nice set for soloing, and it just fits the theme of the build, honestly. So that's going to be my number 1 choice here. Now, if you don't have access to this, because this is a DLC monster set, some of the base game sets will be good as well. I mean, Bloodspawn, if you want something even more tanky for survival on this build, plus the extra old gen. Bloodspawn will go well with the theme on this build. And then even something like Celine's for the extra damage would be nice. Now, we also have a free 2-piece back bar since we're running just Briarheart on the main bar. You can run a Maelstrom bow here if you have access to it. That's going to give this build a little bit extra damage since we are heavy armor. That's going to be nice. But honestly, any bow is fine here. You can even run the Briarheart bow if you happen to have that. The main thing that you want is an infused trait on your bow with the weapon damage enchant as usual. That's going to give you close to 600 extra weapon damage when we're fully buffed, and we do have Briarheart on top of that. So about an extra 1,000 weapon damage once everything is all procced. So that is the setup. We got Leeching Plate on the body, Briarheart weapons and jewelry with the Thorvakin monster set. Let's go ahead and jump into the skills next to make it work. Starting with our front bar, Sword and Shield. Detonating Siphon is going to be our main damage over time. This comes from the Gravelord skill line. That's the last ability that you get here. And Detonating Siphon is our stamina morph. It does disease damage. You can see almost 20k disease damage over 12 seconds. The only thing you need here is a corpse on the ground. That's going to be no problem. We have tons of corpse abilities, so this is going to be very easy. Next up, we got Blighted Blast Bones. That's also from the Gravelord skill line. It's going to be one of our main spammable abilities, though it does take about 3 seconds to cast. You'll want to make sure you cast this every time because this does do very nice AoE damage, and it does put that corpse on the ground, which we talked about. So this, Blighted Blast Bones, combined with your Detonating Siphon, that's how you're going to get that ability to go off. You need to make sure you're casting Blighted Blast Bones about every 3 seconds or so. So those together is a very strong combination, both for single target and AoE. Now, next up, we've got a one-handed shield ability, which is pretty nice on this setup, I will say. This is the Ransack skill from the Sword and Shield skill line. That's the first ability here, and we went with Ransack for a solo setup. So this gives you the Major Fracture debuff, so that's 50 to 80 less physical resistance on your target. It's going to be great for handling a boss, just to make sure that you do as much damage as possible. Now, it's not going to do a lot of damage, so it's more of a debuff now than an actual damage ability. But the nice thing about the Ransack morph is it now gives you minor protection, so that's that 8% damage taken reduction for 15 seconds. So that's going to be really nice. On a lot of my solo builds, I'll slot like Temporal Guard on the front bar to get that buff. But for a Sword and Shield build, this is actually a nice way to get it, and that means we can run a better ultimate on our front bar. So I do like this. Again, for the debuff and for the defensive utility, it's really nice for soloing. And you can even tank for groups, since it is a taunt as well. So definitely recommend that. For the next ability, we have kind of a flex spot in terms of what you want to use for your main spammable damage skill on this build. For a lot of cases, I'm going to use Ruinous Scythe. This is from the Bone Tyrant skill line. It's a really fun ability. It's similar to like Brawler from the two-handed skill line, in that it's a conal, kind of like a cleave effect. So it's going to do AoE damage in front of you, but basically this can set the target off balance if you've hit them 3 times, and it also gives you a nice chunk of healing, especially when you're hitting multiple targets. So for situations like AoE pulls, maybe clearing your way through a dungeon, I definitely recommend having Scythe on your front bar just for that extra AoE damage. Now, the damage itself on a single target fight, like a single target boss, is not going to be that great. Even the healing is not super good, but you can still use it. We have other very powerful damaging abilities here. But another nice option that I like for just a pure single target fight is going back to that Sword and Shield skill line and grabbing Power Slam. Power Slam is a very strong spammable ability, actually. It does much more damage. You can see about 2,000 more physical damage on Power Slam for the same amount of stamina, and if you block, you can get even more, 5% extra damage per block. So this is a fun ability to use as well. Like I said, if you have more of a single target boss fight that you want to do on this build, then check out Power Slam. It's a very strong ability. Finally, on our front bar, we've got Skeletal Archer. So this is just another fun summon ability based on the Necromancer class. So that's going to be back in the Gravelord skill line. That's our second to last ability, and the Skeletal Archer, that's our stamina morph. So it does do physical damage every 2 seconds, and that does ramp up over time. So you want to make sure you leave it up as long as possible with a 16-second duration there. Does pretty good damage over the duration, and this gives us some nice passives as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I do like that ability there on the front bar. And then in terms of the ultimate, we've got, of course, the Colossus. Going with the Pestilent Colossus morph, this does the disease damage over 3 smashes, and it does do the major vulnerability debuff, which is very strong. So that is the front bar. Let's go ahead and switch over to the back bar, which is going to be our bow. Starting off with some bow skills here, we have got Poison Injection. So our last ability from the bow skill line. It says very nice poison damage, both single target and damage over time, and also ramps up in damage the lower health your enemy is. Pretty cheap to cast as well, and just another nice dot effect. This build has a nice combination, I would say, of both damage over time and basically burst damage. So we're combining that with Endless Hail, another damage over time, though this is AoE. So this does physical damage in a circle. And this is basically what we use to proc our weapon damage enchant on the back bar. With that infused bow, again, you'll get about 600 weapon damage every 5 seconds. And as long as you're maintaining your Endless Hail, you should have that buff up all the time. So that's actually a lot of extra damage. You don't want to miss out on that for sure. Next up, we got Mortal Coil. And this is actually one of the best stamina-based heals in the game. I mean, it's not even stamina-based, really. It's a free heal that all you need is a corpse on the ground to cast this. So again, that's going to be part of our rotation where we're casting Blighted Blast Bones every 3 seconds or so. Before you swap to the back bar, make sure you cast one Blighted Blast Bone so you at least have one extra corpse on the ground. And then when you bar swap, you're ready. This ability should be lit up, meaning you have the corpse on the ground, you're ready to cast this heal, because like I said, it's one of the strongest solo heals in the game for any stamina class. I mean, look at that. That's not even buffed. 15,000 health over 12 seconds, and we get stamina back, and it costs nothing. It's free. So, yeah, I can't believe how good this heal is. I mean, if we compare it just to, like, Vigor, for example, Echoing Vigor is 10 seconds, and you only get 11,000 health on this build. So this is 12 seconds for almost 15,000 health with the extra stamina. But like I said, you just need the corpse on the ground, which is no problem with how we've set up this build. Our last two abilities here are just our buffs. We have Beckoning Armor. So that's from the Bone Tyrant skill line, second ability there. And this is very nice because it does give you the major resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance. And this is one of my favorite armor buffs in the game as far as soloing, because it actually pulls enemies into you every 3 seconds. So you know how in trash pulls you usually have a bunch of melee enemies that run up to you, and then you'll have like the archers and the mages out around the battlefield that are a pain. This brings them in automatically. So great buff, great skill. Make sure you run that. And then Spirit Guardian is going to be an extra heal, an extra damage mitigation, you guys, and some nice passives too, honestly. So a basic heal every 2 seconds. Then while active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the Spirit instead. This does create a corpse as well. Also, the Beckoning Armor creates a corpse also. So lots of corpses going on, lots of healing and defense and utility. Just really great skills all around. For the backbar ultimate, it's really up to you. I just put Temporal Guard here. Temporal Guard gives me minor protection on the back bar in case my Ransack runs out from the front bar, so that is nice. Plus, I can get an extra damage shield while blocking here due to the Sigil Order passives. It's kind of nice to have on your back bar in case you get in trouble because you don't have a burst heal on this build, though you don't really need it, but the extra protection there can be nice. If you don't like that or you don't have access to Sigil Order, Bone Goliath is really nice. Either morph here. Pummeling Goliath, you get the bash, smash attack, which is pretty fun. And then Ravenous Goliath, you do get the AoE heal, the health drain, basically, which is also super powerful, basically unkillable even more while in the Goliath form. So that's what I would go for there. So that's the skills. Let's talk about passives. Necromancer passives, especially Stamina Necromancer, are pretty powerful. I think you're going to want most of these. For example, in Gravelord, you definitely want reusable parts. That's going to make our summons so much cheaper to cast, like so much. On a heavy armor build, that's important. Look, Blighted Blast Bones is only 1,100 stamina, and I have no cost reduction, you guys, into stamina. Barely any. That's going to make Archer pretty cheap, 1,700, and then Spirit Guardian, 2,160 Magicka. So definitely recommend get 2 points into reusable parts as soon as possible. Death Knell is good as well. So I talked about the damage potential of this build. When you're starting off a fight, it's okay. I mean, it is a heavy armor build. Keep that in mind. Our weapon damage is not super high, but check out this passive. When an enemy gets below 25%, we have 10% bonus critical for each Gravelord ability slotted. On our front bar, you guys, that's 40%. That's putting us over 90% weapon critical, almost 100%, like complete weapon critical on a heavy armor build once an enemy is low health. This is going to be amazing for just trash pulls, clearing through dungeons because your abilities are going to do so much more damage the lower health your enemy gets. So make sure you put 2 points there. Very strong passive. Dismember is good also. You get extra physical penetration. In Rapid Rot, we do have a lot of dots on this setup, so that's a very nice passive. Make sure you put 2 points there also. Bone Tyrant, Death Gleaning. This does give you some extra sustain, but really just when we have Scythe on the front bar. So that's actually another nice reason to run Scythe, especially if you're clearing through a dungeon. Disdain Harm is not bad. You do reduce the damage from dot abilities. And then Health Avarice will get a little bit of extra healing done on both bars. And then Last Gasp is actually a very powerful passive. I do recommend you put 2 points here for the extra max health, no matter what. Then Living Death, we do have some nice passives here as well. Curative Curse gives you extra healing done. I do recommend picking up that one. Near Death is good for the extra healing. Corpse Consumption does give you extra ultimate, which is nice. And then Undead Confederate gives you extra stamina and magicka recovery, which on a heavy armor build, it's actually pretty nice bonus to have. So definitely put 2 points there. In terms of our passives, you do want everything in one hand and shield. These are, basically tanking passives, which makes this build very easy to play. So I do recommend all of these actually. Fortress gives you some reduced cost, which is very nice. And then you do get some extra weapon damage. Bashing can get even stronger with the Deadly Bash passive. Then we have even more block mitigation for projectiles with Deflect Bolts. And Battlefield Mobility, probably the least important passive, honestly. So if you want to play solo, the mobility is not a huge factor when blocking. So you could save 2 points here if you need to. Now remember, we are running bow on the back bar, so most of these are very good. Long shots does give you extra bonus damage, though we are in melee range most of the time, so you won't get the full effect of this. Though accuracy is nice on the back bar for the extra weapon critical. Definitely Ranger, that's probably the best passive that you want to get right away, because that does reduce the cost of all your bow abilities, which is important on a heavy armor build since sustain could be an issue for you. Hawkeye does give you some passive bonuses for light attacks, so you want to make sure you're light attacking in between your abilities on the back bar. And then Hasty Retreat is kind of nice for just moving around through a dungeon. You do get some extra speed from roll dodging for 4 seconds, so that's kind of a nice trick. Just roll dodge on your back bar for the extra speed. Now again, this is a heavy armor build, which is a little bit unique for a solo setup. But these passives are actually really strong in terms of soloing. You get all this bonus extra armor, extra health recovery, magicka and stamina sustain from Constitution is very nice. Juggernaut, we do get 10% max health. And then Revitalize gives us more sustain from heavy attacks, which is going to be nice. And Rapid Mending for the increased healing received by 8%. It's going to be good too. So definitely pick those up. And I am running 2 pieces of medium. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I would recommend picking up Dexterity for the extra weapon critical. That's not bad. Windwalker gives you a little bit of extra recovery. 4% cost reduction is not huge, but it does help. Agility, you cannot make use of this on the heavy armor build, so you can actually save 2 points here. But you can get Athletics as well for some extra movement speed and reduced cost of roll dodging. In terms of guild skills, yes, Fighter's Guild is useful, even though we're not using any Fighter's Guild abilities on this setup, because you can get some extra ultimate when killing undead, Daedra, or werewolves. That would be the main one here from Fighter's Guild. Like I said, if you want to use Temporal Guard on the back bar, really the only passive you need is going to be Concentrated Barrier. It just gives you a little free mini damage shield on the back bar, which can be nice. Undaunted, if you happen to have rank 10, I definitely would recommend picking up Undaunted Metal. It's going to give you 4% bonus stats on this build. I don't recommend doing 5-1-1 on the setup because we have plenty of stats already, and honestly, I think the extra cost reduction and weapon critical from running an extra medium armor piece is probably a little bit better than an extra 2%, but that's just my opinion. It's probably debatable. PvP, not necessary for this build. Definitely get all of your racial skills and alchemy medicinal use. If you don't know what this does, it basically makes your potions last 30% longer, which is going to be very, very good. Talking about champion points next, remember this is set up for a solo build, so that's what I'm going to be focused on here. In the green tree, 23 into Warlord and Sprinter. 43 into tenacity. You can heavy attack a little bit on the front bar if you need some sustain. 100 into Mooncalf, because why not? What else are you going to use in the green tree? 44 Shadow Ward, 37 into Tumbling. In the blue tree, we got 56 Master at Arms for those direct damage abilities, 25 into Physical Weapon for those light and heavy attacks. Why not? 56 into Thaumaturs, that's 20% bonus damage over time. Damage, which is really strong. Precise Strikes, 37. 40 into Piercing, 56 into Mighty. Then our red tree, 81 Ironclad. 64 into Hardying Elemental Defender, 40 into Thick Skinned. 19 into Quick Recovery, and 2 left over for Heavy Armor Focus. Now, what's the outfit? In case you're curious about this look, let's jump into armor styles. Body pieces is going to be Heavy Armor. This is from the Greymoor chapter, the Ancestral Orc style. So that's all the body pieces: chest, waist, hands, legs, and feet. The only thing that's going to be different is the shoulder. That's just the Thorvikin shoulder. I just left that as is. I did not change the style of the shoulder piece. And then the helmet is slightly different. I believe that's going to be a heavy mercenary helm. And then for the weapon styles, shield. Kind of fitting that Death Knight theme. That's going to be Grim Harlequin for that look. And then the one-handed weapon, that's going to be Buoyant Armiger. All right, so let's talk about the rotation. How do you make this work? First, obviously, you want to grab your potion for your buffs. And then we're going to actually start on the front bar by casting Blast Bones and Archer, just to get those guys up and create some corpses, right? Go ahead and bar swap to the back, and then start doing your dots. So, Poison Injection, Endless Hail. Now we can use our Tether and our buffs, and then go ahead and switch to the front bar. We've got Blast Bones again, Pierce Armor, Tether, Blast Bones, Archer, Scythe. And then go ahead and do Blast Bones one more time before you bar swap, just to make another corpse. And I'm on the back bar again. Here's my dots. There's my Tether on the back bar for the heal and the sustain. Refresh my buffs. Back on the front, Pierce Armor, Tether, Blast Bones again, redo Archer. Throw a couple of sights in here when your ultimate's up. Go ahead and do that. Back bar again. I'll just go ahead and finish this boss off. Pretty easy. You can see sustain is no problem, even on our heavy armor setup. Super easy. I haven't even had to heavy attack yet. Though you can, especially if the boss is off balance. Heavy attacking is good for more damage and extra sustain. Alright, and that is about it. Boss done. Alright everybody, and with that, that's going to wrap up the solo Stam Necromancer Death Knight build update for the Stonethorn DLC. I hope you guys like this one. This build is one of my favorites to play. I'm glad I was able to bring it back for the Stonethorn DLC with a couple of minor updates. So if you liked it, as always, don't forget to crush that like button for me. It definitely helps out the channel. Leave a comment below letting me know what you think or any builds you might like to see coming out next. If you're new here, definitely make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more ESO builds just like this one. I also publish regular ESO news, guides, so make sure you are subscribed right here with notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. If you'd like to support the channel even more, there's links below to my social media and the new website. And as usual, once this build goes live, there will be a written guide for this over on hacktheminotaur.com, so you can check that back later if you need to reference what skills I used or what sets. Links to skills and champion points are all there. So as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, and I will see you around in the next video.